Hey friend, welcome to Chrysalis Chats. My name is Tanya, and this is where we chat through all things holistic wellness and radical environmental education, what you don't get taught in school. Today's topic is animal intelligence meets animal instinct. And before we go on any further, I just want to check in with you. How's the third day of the 7-day vegan challenge going? Do let us know in the comments down below. As I said in my previous video, we are here to be a support system for you as you are engaging with a plant-based diet, which, by the way, I think is so incredibly cool, because not only are you working to heal your body and your soul and your spirit holistically, you're doing the same for the planet, the whole planet, not to mention all the animals that you're impacting and saving in the process. Did you know that every day you go vegan, you're actually saving one innocent animal's life? How cool is that? That's so cool. So, as I said, today's theme, instinct meets intelligence, and we'll start with a quick myth buster. Myth buster, goldfish recall. The forgetfulness of fish is a common trope, from the supposed 3-second memory span of goldfish to Finding Nemo's adorably amnesiac Dory. It was shown decades ago, though, that goldfish remembered fish that they had met months earlier. Recently, scientists described episodic qualities in zebrafish memories because they're a so-called model organism. With findings extrapolated readily to other fish, the life aquatic may be rich in recognition. Perhaps the myths have less to do with fish than a desire to think that creatures confined in tiny featureless glass bottles are too simple to notice. So basically, it was shown that these goldfish have memory recognition, and not only do they have memory recognition, but fish in general, goldfish specifically, can recognize the faces of goldfish and other fish that they've met months prior. So when they see these other fish that they've seen months ago, parts of their brain light up that let us know that they actually remember who that fish is from months prior, which I think is pretty extraordinary. And we're going to go ahead and jump to butterflies. I don't know what you know about the monarch butterfly migration, but it's absolutely fantastic. And so before we get into reading, I just want to quickly give an overview of what that migration process is like for a lot of animals and also, insects. So basically, the butterfly, the monarch specifically, is a fascinating example of a creature that follows the magnet lines of the magnetic fields, basically, of our planet. So basically, every year, butterflies come from Mexico, all the way up to the United States, as far north as Canada, actually. And then they come back down before the winter hits. So in that process, several generations of butterflies are being born. So butterflies come from Mexico all the way to Canada, and they have different lives in that process. So a baby butterfly that starts off in Mexico is going to pass away by the time the flock or the crew of butterflies reaches Canada. So in that process, there's several generations because there's constant rebirth with death, right? And that's a fascinating truth of planet Earth, is that whenever you have a death, you're going to have a rebirth. And that's just how the cycle of life goes. But they follow in this process magnetic fields from where they start to where they're going. So if you know anything about Earth's magnetic fields, there's obviously the North and the South Pole, and there's kind of like these parallel lines that connect those different poles. But the problem that we're seeing more and more of is with the implementation and introduction of all these crazy planes and all this different technology. It's just interfering. The Wi-Fi, all these different cellular towers, it's interfering. It's changing the magnetic fields. They're not the same. They're not what they used to be. So different animals are getting really confused, okay? And they're having to adapt accordingly. But, I digress on that point, and I want to just get a little further into instinct here in this Nat Geo publication. So, we'll start with a case study of Peter the red knot, okay? And this is a little red knot. I hope you can see that little guy right there. So, walking on a Dutch seashore in 1980, a couple named Jap and Map Brasser found a rare red knot with a broken wing. Oh, he had a broken wing. They named him Peter and nursed him back to health, but he never flew again. Peter became part of their household. He slept in a sandbox and fed on mussels, as befit his shorebred instincts. He enjoyed parties too, Red knots are powerfully social birds, and though he could no longer join his biological kin, Peter still gained weight and changed plumage as if preparing for migration. So even though he couldn't interact with these other birds, he still worked off of his deep embedded instinct to get himself ready for that migration period, because it was deep in his anatomical, psychological kind of makeup, okay? And so this little corner piece says, migration is instinctive, the journey of conscious, something different for individual monarch butterflies, opposite, many of whom make only part of the migration south, than for red knots above, who fly between continents each spring and fall of their decade-plus lives. That was a little awkwardly worded, but really what it's saying is that what I just summarized for you, the monarchs, they go through various generations of incarnation as they proceed north and south, respectively, dependent upon the season. Whereas with these other birds, like the red knot, they'll live for a long time. They'll live for years and years and years, not the same as a butterfly, but they also use the similar pattern of adopting the magnetic fields as a guide for them in this process, okay? So the larger body of text in this topic of instinct, it's instructive to consider how people use the word instinct. It's synonymous with innate and automatic, the conversational opposite of reasoned and reflective. When applied to animals, it's often used dismissively. To call a behavior instinctive is also to call it thoughtless. In our own lives, though, instinct is frequently treasured. For a musician or athlete, instinctiveness represents the supreme union of skill and practice, and it's understood that instinct and conscious active thought are not mutually exclusive. That's an important point. We instinctively protect people we love, but are also very aware of what we're doing and feeling. What's blithely called instinct can involve multiple levels of cognition. The yearning of caribou or right whales to seek out seasonal feeding grounds is inborn, but individual animals possess knowledge of the journey and make decisions along the way. The same is true of whooping cranes, driven nearly to extinction by hunting and habitat destruction, but preserved by conservationists who raised chicks in captivity and released them into the wild. Those young birds learned anew their migratory paths. Interesting. The pull is instinctive, the behavior thoughtful. Very interesting. So too in tiny ruby-throated hummingbirds, like other migratory birds, they bulk up before departing, but other birds who previously made their extraordinary transcontinental journey feed with extra urgency and get more rest